Titans are going into Seattle. The Titans, one of the bigger blowouts, one of the bigger shocks of the weekend, Arizona just absolutely decimated them. Their defense showed no signs of improvement from last year. And everyone was telling me the Titans defense is going to be much improved. Come on, we got pieces in free agency. We made some draft picks. I didn't see it. It looked just as bad as last year. They couldn't stop a nosebleed, whether it was the ground game or Kyler Murray. There was no stopping the Arizona Cardinals. Meanwhile, Seattle, they almost equaled the success of the Cardinals against the Colts. Russell Wilson, 4 passing touchdowns on the day, just throwing absolute bombs to Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. Russell Wilson, best deep ball thrower in the league, just the way it just kind of hangs up there. And when he throws in there, you almost feel like the receiver's just going to come down with it. Yeah, Russell Wilson looked great. The Titans did not. Currently, this line is sitting at 6.5 points in favor of Seattle. So almost a touchdown. I want to say that seems a little high for me. That gives me a lot of cause for pause. But this is going to be Seattle's first game with the 12s back in the stadium. That is a big factor to consider because last year, not having that home field advantage, not having that big booming Seattle attendance, I definitely do think may have slowed the Seahawks down a little bit. That's no longer a problem this year. So who do I want to pick? I almost want to pick the Titans because I'm like, bounce back week. Come on. You just got embarrassed last week against the Cardinals. You know, I'm going to do it. I'm going to pick the Titans in an upset outright in Seattle.
Wow. I commend you for your cojones in making this prediction. So I'll just
Gotta have
get
the
it
cojones.
out of the way.
Got to have the ganas.
Absolutely. Just to get it out of the way, I've got Seattle this week winning and covering the spread. My buddy over at Beer Life Sports, Razor Rosenthal, says take Russell Wilson, Lockett, and DK Metcalf in your daily fantasy leagues this week. But to the point about the game itself, there were 2 teams that I felt like totally changed their defense over the offseason. And through both of them, I said they have a new defense, but it doesn't mean they have a good defense. Just because you have new names doesn't make you a great team. And it was Cleveland and it was the Titans. And I walk away from week 1 feeling great about Cleveland and awful about the Titans defense. And so Tennessee has names that you recognize. Jeffrey Simons has been awesome across the past couple of years. Harold Landry, Bud Dupree is now rushing off the edge for them. They gave him like $80 million, I think. So that could be a poor contract down the line. But the Titans secondary is pretty depleted. Kevin Byard is not the player he once was, and he's supposed to be the anchor of a really young defense. Apparently, Janoris Jenkins is on the Titans now. I found that out over the weekend. So, good for Janoris Jenkins that he's still hanging around there. But I think that Seattle, your point on the 12s actually is funny because you realize that without the 12s, they lose home games to Colt McCoy and Alfred Morris against the Giants, which is a thing that happened last year. I can never get over the fact they lost to Colt McCoy and Alfred Morris last year. But
name who Colt McCoy is currently playing for.
Cardinals. I do know that. I produce a Cardinals podcast, and that might be the only reason why I know that is because I know Colt McCoy is the backup for the Cardinals. Alfred Morris, I think, just got cut by someone. I think he's out of the league now, but he was out of the league for like 2 years. They just signed him, and he scored 2 touchdowns against the Seahawks.
Give it a couple more Niners injuries, and then I could see him have it back.
Yeah, I mean, the Ravens are assembling the 2015 Pro Bowl team in their running back room, so maybe just throw Alfred Morris in there too. But Seattle for the win in this one. Seattle's defense is better than we give it credit for, and the reason is just because they have those 2 anchors being Bobby Wagner and Jamal Adams, who are probably the 2 best at their positions. I think Budda Baker probably has them at the safety position, but Jamal Adams is right there. If not 1, then 2 or 3. And so I think those anchors instantly are going to make you not terrible at defense. I think LJ Collier is still out for the Seahawks, which is a tough break. Jordan Brooks has been okay for Seattle since they drafted him in 2020. But other than that, Seattle's defense is good enough, given that it looks like Russell Wilson is going to have another one of these arcs where he has 10 great weeks and then just falls off towards the back end of the season. So the offense is going to be in the top 7 this year. I think top 7 offense against bottom 7 defense is never a great combination. So I'll take Seattle and the points in this one, as I said off the top.
If you're the Titans, bright spot, you don't have to see Chandler Jones this week. As Taylor Luan said, I got my ass kicked on Twitter. Very appropriate, as 5 sacks that hell of a day there by Chandler Jones, definitely earning his money there. Apparently, the Seahawks almost doubled their play actions from last year. So Shane Waldron's definitely had a positive effect. And I think another thing that kind of has me down on the Titans, appropriate, Todd Downing, the fact that he didn't really utilize all these pieces, all these elite tier talents that they have on the Titans offense in a positive way. I said that was going to be the biggest thing that gave me kind of concerns for the Titans going into the year. And sure enough, week one, it doesn't look pretty. They didn't look like a cohesive offense in any way. I guess I'm just looking more so from the pride element of the Titans. I said this going back to when we first started the podcast. When you think they're down, when you think they're going to lose, that's the week to pick the Titans because they always go against our nature. There was this one time, so we were doing the pick'ems very early on in our first season of doing this. I swear every time I picked them to lose, they would win. Every time I picked them to win, they would lose. So if you're besides me, you probably actually are in the right to pick them to lose because I picked them to win. So I guess that's just kind of how the nature of it goes.
During that magical season where the Titans made that miraculous run to the AFC Championship, I said when they were 2-3 that the Titans would make it to the playoffs if they put Ryan Tannehill in. And then the next week, Mariota got benched for Tannehill and they made the playoffs and then went to the AFC Championship. And ever since that moment, I've been dead wrong about the Titans. It's one of the most right I've ever been. And then I just haven't gotten anything right about the Titans since. I passed on Derrick Henry for Michael Thomas in fantasy because I thought he would decline. He had a 2,000-yard season. I wouldn't have extended Tannehill, fourth in the league in QBR. Said they wouldn't make the playoffs, made the playoffs, did lose to Baltimore. So I felt I did pick that one right. Thought they would be all right this year and Derrick Henry would be great. He was terrible. I picked him in fantasy at number 4 this year because I wasn't making the same mistake twice, and he was terrible in week 1. So I've been just dead wrong about the Titans ever since. So fittingly, the Titans are probably going to win this week, and we can just scream "Tighten up" at our TVs over and over because even if this does change, I'll still be rooting for the Titans because they're just so lovable. Everything about the Titans is lovable.
Tighten up.